Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, as always with our beloved brother, Alok. Yesterday we began Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, Canto 1, the Pursuit of the Unknowable, and today we will complete this canto.
Yes.
So we are on page 307, about 2/3 of the way down.
So as we see, the unknowable is all the realms which are beyond even the highest mind. That means all that is beyond the overmind, to use Sri Aurobindo's terminology. So the supramental and the higher world still beyond the worlds of truth, the worlds of bliss, the worlds of pure consciousness, and of course the Sachidananda and the Parbrahma. All this goes beyond. So it's roughly it is described as transcendent. So we have the individual and we have the cosmic. The cosmic is the overmind and below. It contains everything within itself. And we have the transcendent. So transcendent is all that is beyond. So it transcends. It transcends all our sensory knowledge, our intellectual knowledge, our mind, and all that we can know through the mind, even at its highest, even beyond the intuitive realm. By intuition, one can have a hint that there is this beyond, but you can't enter into it. You have to go still further.
But this one is, this passage especially, it's almost foreboding.
Yes, so that's the beauty. I always say that, who could express the unknowable in such terms which become so intimate and near to us.
Yes.
We see their description in the Vedas, neti, neti, not this, not this. Or we have another description, all this, this too, iti, iti. But here Sri Aurobindo for the first time describes in great detail what it is and yet what it is not, and it is beyond is and is not. That's the whole beauty of this. Because the moment we try to define it, we lose it. Another very interesting word we read is where nothing made could live. So here made has to be seen in the sense that all that is made by the mind, because there is something called as self-born. In spiritual terms, self-born, swambhu, that which manifests itself out of itself. So there are Godheads even in the supramental realms. There are beings even in the bliss self, but they are not made. They are the original self-manifestation of the divine. All the rest becomes made. So all the mind and below it doesn't, cannot live there, cannot enter. That's why when we often use the word falsehood in a very crass way, and the mother says that all these codes, mental, vital, physical, they are all full of falsehood. It's built out of, it doesn't reveal the truth to us. It always distorts, conceals, shows us an appearance, but the totality which alone truth is, it's not revealed. So this is the second aspect. And the third is a dizzy verge. That's why yoga has to be undertaken when there is a call for the yoga. One reason is that the contact with the higher consciousness can be extremely disorienting. We have a certain measure by which we lead our life, and it's our safety zone, comfort zone. But the moment we enter into the touch of the infinite, these measures fall away. Nothing finite, We may still follow it because it's necessary, but we know that it doesn't contain an absolute truth. So it just falls away, and to those who are not ready, it can be very disorienting. That's why people who bracket life into neat categories, good and bad, right and wrong, moral and social and religious, scriptural, even they vanish there. And Mother says that it's very difficult for these human beings to enter into this realm because we want a foothold. Mind needs a foothold to navigate through life. But the moment it's face to face with the infinite, it doesn't know. Yes. It's like when you plunge in the middle of the sea. Before you take a plunge, this is shore, there is sea, this is Bay of Bengal, this is east, west, north, south. Take a dip and see. I know it by personal experience. You won't know the above and the below and the right and the left and the west and the east. You'll just won't know what's happening till you resurface again. So that experience in a much vaster way. And the closest that I remember is one of Medhananda's experience, how disorienting going beyond our limited frame of reference can be. Medhananda, as we know, he was a British or German. So he had this tendency to go out of the body and travel into celestial worlds and different systems and universes. And Mother had cautioned him against it, but once when he had gone, he couldn't find his way back. He doesn't know. There is no GPS to say this is Earth. It's a small dot. So he asks, and he doesn't know how to reach till he encounters two beings, obviously not this worldly, tall beings, and he tries to explain to them what Earth is. They don't understand. And then after a while they say, "Oh, Shurabindu's Earth." Yes. Back to the body. So it can be completely disorienting when we are in those realms. And that's why a long preparation is required for yoga, all this equanimity and all these practices, peace, steadiness, strength, because otherwise we can be completely lost. And of course, after a while, a new consciousness begins to emerge. That's what we read last time. That either we can lose ourselves completely into it, one path, or we can be rebuilt in a new way, a new mind and a body in the city of God. That's how Savitri elsewhere describes. And we have stopped here. The separate self must melt or be reborn into a truth beyond the mind's appeal. All glory of outline, sweetness of harmony, rejected like a grace of trivial notes, expunged from being's silence, nude, austere, died into a fine and blissful nothingness. So what happens to beauty? Beauty is rediscovered in its formless essence. Sri Aurobindo was asked this question. Normally with beauty we think of outline, form, even if it's mental form.
I was reading that very thing today.
Yes. So he says beauty in its truth, it exists in its formless essence. But we cannot imagine beauty without some form. Something should be there. Without that, how do you say beauty? The Demiurges lost their names and forms. So these Demiurges are the great creators. We have the Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So what happens to them? So Brahma in that becomes infinite existence. What happens to Vishnu? So all of them, they enter into their infinity where they lose their names. Out of that they have emerged. But they lose that, the way we understand them from the over mind and below. So these are the Demiurges, they lose their name and form. You can experience them but as very different, like an absolute of Shiva, absolute of Vishnu, absolute of Brahma, to use the Indian pantheon, and something similar is there in every different systems. The great schemed worlds that they had planned and wrought, passed, taken and abolished one by one. What to speak of me and mine? You see, this is a very humbling and a canto which can chastise us. Very often I see people who come and they want to know yoga and what am I supposed to do? I will do it. I will reject. I will put in that effort. Well, in the beginning it works like that. After a while you discover this I is the problem. Always the divine is there doing everything. And we give so much importance to this little I, which actually if you see the infinity, that touch of infinity frees us from that. You will wonder where is this I gone, like the article 370. So strongly held and vanished. You don't know where it goes. Of course, the ego resists. Everything in creation is a wonderful example. We can understand
Once Mother was with me in a dream experience, and she was showing me all these universes. Vastness like I've never seen. And then she says to me, I have shown you the diversity in order that you may realize the unity.
Yes. And it's so humbling. So humbling. And it's surprising that, after receiving this touch, we can still hold on to that eye as something so precious. So. And now comes the supramental Godhead who stands at the gates of the unknowable, through whom we pass into the ultimate mystery which has no name. So there is a beautiful description. The universe removed its colored veil, and at the unimaginable end, you can't even imagine it, leave aside conceiving it. Look at the perfection of Sri Aurobindo's words, unimaginable. And of the huge riddle of created things appeared the far seen Godhead of the whole. He is far seen because even at an intuitive realm you can get a sense. Now he appears close to his right face to face. Far seen Godhead of the whole. Perhaps he is the Aditya whom one has worshipped in ancient Indian thought, from whom all has emerged, far seen Godhead. And he is whole of the whole, complete. He is not one aspect or another aspect or a third aspect, but he wraps within himself all the different aspects of the one. His feet firm based on life's stupendous wings, omnipotent, a lonely seer of time, inward, inscrutable, with diamond gaze. We see all the aspects of the supramental. Omnipotent, lonely seer. Sun, the supramental sun is often described, can see all sides, all around it.
And I've always felt that line about his feet, firm based on life's stupendous wings.
Yes. And of course we have the diamond gaze, attracted by the unfathomable regard, the unsolved slow cycles to their fount returned, to rise again from that invisible sea. It's very overwhelming lines. All the cycles returning, like lost cattle back to the master. It's cycles, not just an individual life. All the cycles of creation are surging up to him, entering into that sea and once again coming back. Some of the lines of Sri Aurobindo are so powerful and overwhelming. In this poem called Parbrahman, he describes it in this way. He is, we cannot say, nor he is not. For nothing too is a conception of himself unguessed. Both time and timelessness sink in that sea. Time becomes a wave, space a wandering drop. How can we imagine the consciousness of someone who wrote this, who experienced it? That's why such profound humility is required when we stand face to face with the divine. Looking at all this, I feel the most logical, the most rational thing that a human being can do is to surrender oneself to the divine. It's rational because look at the limitlessness. All from his pusa born was now undone. Nothing remained, the cosmic mind conceives. So what happens is that from the transcendent, like seeds, truths are cast, like idea forces into the cosmic mind. And from there, they are unleashed into creation. But where have they come from? From the transcendent. Now, all that is absorbed back into the origin, into the source. Call it by whatever name, doesn't matter. From there they are cast and they are absorbed back. That's the beauty of when Mother speaks of new creation, means from this transcendent, a new seed has been sown into the cosmic mind, which is going to change the entire balance of things. It is the hour of God. She says that when the old bases get shaken, because a new thing has been introduced within the realm of the cosmic mind didn't even know. It cannot know that something like that exists. It can only know what is received by it from above. Eternity prepared to fade and seemed a hue and imposition on the void. Space was the fluttering of a dream that sank before its ending into nothing's deeps. So it's beyond time and space. The spirit that dies not and the Godhead self seemed myths projected from the unknowable. So even the gods are withdrawn. That's why in ancient Indian thought, this cycles returning back. We normally hear about pralayas when an entire universe is dissolved. But there is something also known as Mahapralaya. So pralaya is when the physical universe, material universe is dissolved, sunk. But Mahapralaya, when even the gods and the higher planes are withdrawn into their origin. So that means an entirely new cycle is going to begin. So even these gods, high gods, they have a certain term. They don't die, they are deathless, but they are absorbed back into their original essence from which they are cast back into creation. From it all sprang, in it is called to cease, but what that was, no thought nor sight could tell. Only a formless form of self was left, like a small little line on water, drawn water, formless form. You can sense that there is something going to take place. There is before the creative expression, when people, the best way to understand is this particular line, what that state could be, that everybody who creates, before creating, be it a painting or a poem, anything of that kind, there is a state when you brood upon that thought. Then there is a point when it's gone into some kind of a quietude. And that time you ask that, what are you thinking or what are you planning to create? And you say, I've got some idea. You ask to define the idea, it's a vague idea. It's there, there is something, but you can't define it now. And then you sit with the paper or pen or the brush and what comes out is a marvel. So that state when the formless and the form, this is the border. And Mother at one place says it's from this high border that man has descended. His origin is very high. He doesn't know it. From the borders of the form and the formless. On Education she writes this, that we have to invoke a force from beyond the borders of the form and the formless. It's that border at which Ashwapati stands, and that border is so beautifully described. Only a formless form of self was left, a tenuous ghost of something that had been the last experience of a lapsing wave before it sinks into a boneless sea. As if it kept even on the brink of naught, the bare feeling of the ocean whence it came. So it's that experience when if it goes inside, it's lost. And that's why Mother says our goal is not to annul ourselves, but to manifest the divine perfection upon earth. So we have to take that station somewhere there, from where an entire being can be new made. If we plunge in that state, it's gone forever.
It's finished.
Yeah. As if it kept even on the brink of naught its bare feeling of the ocean whence it came, a vastness brooded free from sense of space, an everlastingness cut off from time, a strange, sublime, inalterable peace, silent, rejected from it, world and soul. Even the sense of a separate soul, because the moment you enter into it, it's annulled. So it's like it's reached that spot, which is famously mentioned in Buddha's Mahayana Buddhism, not all branches of Buddhism, that he stood on the threshold and then he looks back upon creation and life and says, no, I refuse to merge into it. But if you go there, it's gone. All the sense of an individual soul, even that is gone. So it stands on the borders of that. Only semi-humorously, when Sri Aurobindo was asked about it, he said the only thing is you won't have the joy of entering into that state because, well, you are gone. There is no you, there is no experience anymore. It's just gone. So, but, well, there are beings who are called upon for that. There are others who are called upon for this. And what Sri Aurobindo defines it as, at one place he says, my aim is not to create mutts or monasteries, but to call the souls of the strong to the Leela of Krishna and Kali. So there are souls which are not strong enough, they can't bear the pressure of creation. And they choose to exit and they have a door. But that door is not easy to reach, not like, nirvana in 14 days, give $2,000 and you get nirvana. Even that is not easy. Sri Aurobindo says no yoga is easy. Even the yoga of world shunning asceticism is not easy. Or we have the other choice of manifesting the divine fullness here in creation.
And even on the sunlit path,
yes,
there will be problems.
After all, it's a big challenge, it's a great adventure, and it fills your heart. It's like a tonic to the soul. What life would be, what will be its worth if there is no challenge to it? So it's a great challenge, and there is a joy of that challenge. A stark, companionless reality answered at last to his soul's passionate search. Passionless, wordless, absorbed in its fathomless hush, keeping the mystery none would ever pierce. It brooded, inscrutable and intangible. What is that mystery of mysteries? He reaches at the door, but it speaks nothing. It as if receives nothing. It just like a supreme witness of whole creation. Everything is going into it, emerging out of it, going back into it, emerging out, like the ocean unrolling itself. But what is there in the depth of the ocean heart? Who can know? So who would pierce? Facing him with its dumb, tremendous calm, all that he experiences is that tremendous calm, hush, and where nothing else is there. It had no kinship with the universe. There was no act, no movement in its vast. Life's question met by its silence died on her lips. All our questionings. Why is this? Why is that? My life, cosmic life, all the questions. The moment you reach there, they vanish. There are no questions. There are mystics who say that. All these questions are creation of the mind. You go beyond, they cease. That's very easy to say, but real life as we experience. And that's the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, that he enters into its deeps, into that fathomless heart. And that's where the Divine Mother reveals herself to him. And he brings all the answers to the riddle of creation. But first thing that you encounter is that there is no riddle, that is the riddle. We got it wrong. That's how you get the experience. This was not the riddle. This was the riddle. And then you enter and that's the end of everything. The world's effort ceased, convinced of ignorance. Convicted of ignorance. So this, your question, it's an ignorant question. Now you see what used to happen with someone like Raman Maharshi, you were mentioning yesterday. You go and ask him any question and he would primarily focus on who am I? Focus on that. So Paul Brunton had gone there and he had all these questions, then slowly they ceased and he kept on raising in his mind. He was thinking of who am I, then suddenly this question came, looking at Sri Raman Maharshi, who are you? And he opened his eyes and there was nobody, vanished. Like that nothingness had taken a form for the sake of. So that is one kind of approach.
I think Temi was about 17 when she went to him with her father.
Oh.
And her father said, you formulate all your questions and he will answer all of them. She got in there and he's on the dais. She never asks a word.
That's it. No. They cease. It's like, many of the questions which we raise at kindergarten. Yeah. What do parents answer? Not in the school, but parents, when they keep asking parents, say, you will understand when you grow up. That's simple as that. But the questions are valid. You can't invalidate them. So there is a whole line of mysticism which invalidates creation, the questions, the riddle, everything. You call it pain, it's an illusion, but the pain experienced is so real, and that's where the beauty of Sri Aurobindo, he gives an answer to the cosmic riddle. But that comes little later. Right now he is describing that experience which some mystics had and they regarded it as the ultimate experience. Finding no sanction of supernal light, there was no mind there with its need to know. There was no heart there with its need to love. All person perished in its namelessness. You have a question, when you are not there, what is the question? So it vanishes. There was no second. It had no partner or peer. Only itself was real to itself. This is exactly what we have, the description of the great Purusha in the Vedantic scripture. Ekameva Dvityam, one without a second. A pure existence, safe from thought and mood. But it exists. It's not a nothingness in that sense that there is no existence. There is existence. Pure existence, the original existence. A consciousness of unshared immortal bliss. So it is existence, it is consciousness, it is bliss. Self-existent. It dwelt aloof in its bare infinite, one and unique, unutterably soul. And now comes a very important line, because very often people, when they speak of this existence, they speak of Tao or Par-Brahman, they take it that, okay, so there is no being. Yeah. When you speak of being, you have actually limited. But actually, always it sounded to me a logical paradox. If there is existence which is conscious of itself, it is a being by definition. It's not a being in the sense that we portray. A God who is up there sitting with a carrot and a stick, counting our deeds and misdeeds. That obviously that being is far beyond all this. But if there is an existence fully conscious of itself, it's a being. That's how we come to know, even at a limited level, about ourselves. We become aware of who? About ourselves in some subjective space. So the next line is a being formless, featureless and mute. You can't give it a form. You may make countless forms of him, describe him by all the qualities that we can, still you cannot exhaust. He will still remain something unknowable.
And Sri Aurobindo capitalizes being.
Oh, yes, he is the being that knew itself by its own timeless self. So that's why it's like when people ask, how do you know God? You know God only by identity. There is no other way. If you don't identify, you cannot know. How do you identify? Well, by the grace, it is the Lord. You reach a point where He has to identify his consciousness with yours. He had never lost it. We had lost it because of the veil of separation. And you discover that unity. When you discover that unity, you know that much which he allows you to know. There is no other way of knowing. Yes, there is a stage and a place for all debates and discussions because human mind cannot straight away take that leap. And all this makes the mind vast and complex, but also creates problems. But there come a time when all these become quiet, and you know because he knows himself, and your consciousness becomes one with him. Aware forever in its motionless depths, uncreating, uncreated, and unborn. Now here comes a very interesting line. He is uncreated, unborn is understandable. Uncreating is motionless. So where did creation come from? It emerged from him. But if you ask him, you created it? There is no answer to that. Of course there is a power within, but Ashapati encounters that power later. But your first experience is that it is emerging and vanishing. The one by whom all live, who lives by none. So all of us are miniature Satchidananda. All of us are a limited existence. All of us are a limited consciousness. And all of us experience a limited, if you may use the word, bliss. So because we experience it in a limited way, but deep within, intuitively we know that it is infinite. So we are always seeking for infinite existence. First by expanding our physical empire, then other kinds of empire. We also seek infinite consciousness, infinite, there is no end of knowledge, no end of power. And we seek infinite bliss. And the disparity between the two is the cause of all our experience of dualities of pain and pleasure, happiness and sorrow. Because we experience this limited thing, but we are also deep within aware of the unlimited, limitless out there, here within, and we seek it. We don't know, we don't have the means. So for a long time we live with these dualities in ignorance and suffer. But then a time comes when we know that the real thing, what is the real thing, and how we can arrive at that, then the real journey begins. An immeasurable, luminous secrecy. But as I said, each half a phrase is so inspiring. The one by whom all live. If we can just reflect upon this state and take the truth of these words within ourselves, what do we live by? 100 answers. But the true real answer is by the divine. The day we realize it, life changes. The one by whom all live, who lives by none. An immeasurable, luminous secrecy, guarded by the veils of the unmanifest. So this is the other term which comes, that there is the manifest creation. And what is behind, what is inside the Supreme Purusha? Unmanifest. It is not yet manifested. But there is something. It's like a poet's heart. So often we can use this as like, when Valmiki had not written the Ramayana, was he not the same Valmiki? Yes, he was the same Valmiki. Or Vyasa the Mahabharata. But the moment he expresses, you have the manifest Vyasa in the form of Mahabharata. And lot more which is inside the heart of Vyasa, which perhaps none can know. And there's a beautiful story about that. When Vyasa had written everything, yet he was not satisfied. There is something which is, troubling him. So Narada has to always go, divine messenger, and he says, I know the cause of your suffering. There is something within you which wants to manifest, but you have not manifested. So he says, what is it? I know there is something, but I can't put my finger on it. What is it? He says, the story of the Lord. That's how the Bhagavad is born. Because there is something which is there inside, which is not manifested. So you see, this manifestation and unmanifest, they are not two different things. They are one continuity. We create a opposition. So many of these great mystics, they said, oh, manifest world, it's so imperfect. But the unmanifest perfection is there, but it's one continuity. Out of the manifestation is constantly growing, progressing, moving. It's not a closed thing. Universe is expanding. Open energy systems, to use scientific terminology. So from the manifest, constantly things are flowing into the manifestation to make it more and more perfect. And there is no end to this perfection. Supramental perfection is only one step, but a crucial step. So when you look at it like this, then life becomes very fascinating. So we create this division, but this division is not there in reality. Guarded by the veils of the unmanifest, above the changing cosmic interlude, abode supreme, immutably the same, is silent cause. Oh, this is the original cause, so C capital. Is silent cause, occult, impenetrable, infinite, eternal, unthinkable, alone. So this is why, when people were asked that what is this creation, some declared it is an illusion, some said the original cause is desire, and some say it's a Leela without knowing what this Leela is about. Or one could say it is just the unfolding of the delight which is within the heart of the one. So it's the cause, but actually speaking, it's not a cause in the sense we understand. It's a constant emergence from that one of the infinite delight which goes and becomes this creation. That's why we see one thing which is a common sign of everything as a constant thread. Consciousness is a little more difficult to touch, but what is easier to touch is joy of existence. See even the material world, the mountains, the rivers, and you can feel that joy. See the world of trees, animals, you can feel the joy. But when it comes to human beings, it becomes difficult, mind you. The mind puts a veil. And
this world was built by delight.
Delight. It's nothing but delight unfolding itself. Now, where does pain come in? Because the delight that the form can hold is always limited. And therefore, it always knows its limitation and seeks the limitless. That becomes the cause of all this struggle and suffering and seeking and finding and losing and seeking, etc., etc. The day we have a form which is supple enough, wide enough to constantly receive that delight and increase its receptivity. Sri Aurobindo says that it must keep on increasing its receptivity, and he says that there is no such form, and therefore he gives that surrender to the Divine Mother, why it's important. So it has to keep on increasing its receptivity and suppleness. So that's the only way that you can become a privy to the infinite delight while in the form, through the form. Otherwise, most human beings have to withdraw into a bliss of trance. And then they come back. When they come back, it's the same world. But they've experienced or tasted something which is of infinite value. But to experience it while waking in all the activities, that was Mother's experience. She says that, mystics hold these views. One is that they say these are mundane activities, and she describes it like sweeping the floor, cooking, and they say there is nothing sacred about it. So this is one type of activity, and then they say there is meditation. In meditation, you come in contact with that reality. Then she says there are other kind of people who are more religious oriented, and they say that this activity is a preparation. I can do it as a service of God. Mother says, but my experience is neither of these, something still further. All this is delight. All this is delight. And that will be the supramental experience. She one place says, it's the developed mind, people with a developed mind, they will be the most difficult people. Those who have worked upon themselves, they are the most difficult because they have very hardened ego. Whereas others, like flowers, like children, even material things, they respond very fast. Then she gives an example. What is her example? Says, water from the tap, the toothpaste, the flow, they were all dancing in joy. It's experience described. Commonest activity. Where is he not? But mind wails because it wants to cut into parts. By its nature, actually, that's the problem. Mind by its nature has to divide things into finite sections. That's how it understands. Manageable bits. That's why it has the particle theory is mind, wave theory is consciousness. It cannot look at things in a continuity. It has to lose itself. It has to enter into another dimension of consciousness. But the moment it breaks it into parts and makes it finite, it loses that infinity and it suffers and struggles. So this is the problem with the mind. So she says, those who have worked upon themselves, big egos. We may think, they are great people. No, they have done tapasya and effort. Of course, tapasya is there, but of a very different kind. Not the tapasya as we understand, sitting with both the hands. Someone asked me recently, look, the eyes, for me it is natural to just sit like this and, I enter and it's so beautiful. But I see people sitting like this, So, I don't know. Am I supposed to do this? I said, don't even look at them. Don't even look at them. You don't become stiff when you practice yoga. You become supple. You become humble. If you are remembering a posture, then you have forgotten God. So I'm putting it a bit paradoxically. In fact, when you forget yourself, your experience, your meditation, your life, that's the time infinity reveals itself. So we'll stop here at the end of Canto 1 and we have a very beautiful canto. We'll start on Sunday, closer to the Lord's birthday.
Yes.
It's Canto 2, the adoration of the Divine Mother. So Ashupati is standing on the edge now. He has a choice. It's like a promo. Of course, we all know what's going to come. He is compelled to a tremendous choice. Like many of the mystics, he can annul himself. End of all issues. End of effort, end of suffering, end of pain, end of joy, limited joy, the end of everything. And it can absorb. It won't make a difference to the Supreme. Or he can remake himself. But how to remake himself? He does not know. And he waits on being's naked edge. That's how Sri Aurobindo describes it. So we'll take a pause and continue on coming Sundays.